And people talk about YouTube as a jewel in Google's crown. Perhaps it's more like cubic zirconium rather than a diamond. What's the story here?
Well, I think that the revenue numbers don't tell the whole story around YouTube. The first thing is that YouTube is arguably the second most important search engine. If you think of it that way, you could argue it's a really critical strategic buffer if you're Google that helps prevent anyone else from taking meaningful market share in search.
Okay, how is it then that YouTube, doesn't make any money?
Right. Well, part of the problem is that they don't charge consumers to use it. Very little of what they have available is palatable to most advertisers, and so there's relatively little video that they deliver which is monetizable.
But what about the fact that so many people use it as a search engine? There's no strategy YouTube can employ to monetize that?
I don't know that they don't have a strategy, but it's clear that they've decided to see if they can monetize content that is basically available for free, and to see if they can find ways to get content that's of a sufficiently high quality, the semi-professional caliber, that they can sell advertising against and keep your content cost low and drive revenue up.
Why is it, where is Google spending all this money? If YouTube, they have revenue, but for there to be no money on the bottom line, clearly some costs have to enter the equation somewhere.
Well, yes, again, when you think about 5 or maybe even 10% at most of ads being, of content being monetized, the problem is you have 90+% of videos being delivered around the world, which is really expensive when you think about the cost of the data centers, the cost of streaming, all sorts of other administrative costs too. And so, and they built a pretty good consumer product that's not free. So there's a lot of places where they have costs, and there's no revenue that's going to necessarily offset that.
Why is it why is it that expensive? I get your point that they're doing a lousy job of monetizing the ads, but this does it cost
I didn't say they're doing a lousy job. I just said there is no business in monetizing it.
Okay, forgive me, over-interpreting what you've been saying, but they're not monetizing very much of their video content, but how is it that expensive to run a bunch of servers and server farms to be able to store all of this video content and make it available as it is at the press of a button?
It really is. I mean, if you have to operate the data centers they have, you have to pay for the content delivery costs. It does add up to a substantial sum.
So what does that say about Google's valuation? Once again, going back to conventional wisdom, over time, the prevailing view is that Google got YouTube for a song at $1 billion. If it's not making any money, how do you value it today?
Well, to be clear, YouTube is a small part of the overall Google story. I would argue, and I have been arguing for years, that investors have probably put too much stock in YouTube as an important component of Google. It really isn't from a financial perspective, but it is an important strategic element. It is a buffer. It is a form. If you're Google, would you rather that Microsoft bought YouTube going back 10 years ago? That would have actually armed Bing in a pretty meaningful way. Remember, it is probably the second most important search engine. It's a different paradigm for search, and Google dominates it. Better that they control it than someone else.
So just from a defensive standpoint, who cares if it makes money? Google would rather have YouTube in their portfolio than let an enemy have it.
Exactly, and you can argue they've been actually fairly rational about their approach so far. The first thing is, well, why not try to monetize the content that is free? Why pay for people to produce content if you think you can monetize stuff that's out there for free? Why spend $1 billion with the NFL, let's just say, to actually put up content where you'd never make that money back in advertising?